Hello, and welcome to Don't Mess with the Mommas podcast, here with Johnny Mitchell and Arlena Black. This is part 2 of It's All Mental. Just to review a couple of important messages that we wanted to leave you with from the last episode was 1. Live in the present moment, not the past. Don't judge yourself. Enough people will judge you. Do not judge yourself. Guilt causes tremendous suffering. That's 2 and 3, I guess. Don't put yourself down. You are a treasure, just as you are. Finally, and I think this is number 5 or number 6, your past does not define your present or your future. And before we get started, we'd like to ask our viewers, listeners, to write 5 things that you're grateful for. And we would love to share that with you at the next podcast. Don't forget, we are Mommas, mommas.podcast@gmail.com, and you'll hear that again at the end of this episode. So, to start off, this time we're going to be talking about theories of coping mechanisms or psychological theories. And we're going to do a little bit of role play, and I have to apologize in advance if it sounds goofy or if I in particular make a silly sound and it sounds like somebody's accent. I really apologize because I certainly don't mean to offend anybody. But let's start off. Johnny is going to tell us about how Freud defined different ways of coping called defense mechanisms. Take it away, Johnny.
Thank you, Arlena. Before we go into this new session, I thought it would be a good time to point out in our last session where we talked about mental health and the continuum or spectrum of mental illness. And you've been very good with sharing your family history and situation. And this points out our practice, which we both practice, this Buddhism that we use, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, that you adopted a long time ago. And if you recall, your mother, you said, suffered many mental breakdowns.
Correct.
Your father had early dementia. Your sister recently passed. And you are now well into our wonderful years and living a completely mentally healthy experience. And I would just like to point that out. How do you feel about that as an example of absolute proof with our practice? And you made that determination to choose.
Well, I think everybody struggles in a different way, and nobody knows what their destiny is and what they have to struggle with. But I think when I became a Buddhist, it was the point that I was told I was ready for a psychotic breakdown. And when I started chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, I realized that I had to change something deep within me. I had to take responsibility. I had to reflect on my own life in a much more serious way. And of course, many people will experience mental and physical difficulties. We're all human after all. But I really feel like I've built up tremendous fortune to be able to be healthy so far, mentally, up until this time. But back to you, and you'll tell us all about Freud.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
And today, as she said, I'm going to talk about the 2 practices or beliefs in psychology that most people are aware of, or if not, this is a good introduction. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Freud. Freud had the belief, he was a psychoanalyst who had the belief that everything revolved around our sexual stages of development. And he had first stage oral, when the baby is sucking from the breast or the bottle, anal, phallic, and I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
I think it's phallic.
Phallic, thank you, and latent, and then genital. And so those stages he thought that every person went through until I believe up to puberty, and then you stayed in that genital stage until death. But he also had that everybody's personality was based on three things: the id, which was the instinct, where we share, I guess, with all animals. Society put on us the superego, where it's right or wrong, or you don't do this and don't do that. And then the ego is where the id and superego meet in the middle, and that's where we deal with regular life. Now, as you know, as individuals, everybody is so different. So it's amazing. We're always talking about conflict and wars, but it's amazing to think, for me, that we get along at all, because everybody is developing at such a different mixture
Yes, that's true.
of what's prominent and what's not. You know, the id is telling you, if you see something you want, well, you just take it. And then, you know, the superego is saying, no, that's not right. You know, you shouldn't steal, or you shouldn't do this, take what's not yours. And then there's in the middle, where you compromise and you try to figure out, how can I get this without hurting myself or anybody else, and doing it fairly. And again, each individual deals with that on a different basis. So some people go with, you know, they never do this and they never do that. And some people go with, that's the only way I go, is doing it however I want to do it. And then there are people in the middle, but in the middle of what is so individual. And so the other part of his was that belief is the libido as the driving force behind all behavior. And we can just chew on that. While I think Elena wants to do some role playing with defense mechanisms or coping mechanisms. And when I was studying psychology, I think it implied that only certain people would need to use these. But as I have grown in life, it's all right to use coping or defense mechanism. They keep us sane, they keep us on track, and it works. So go ahead, Elena. I'm anxious to see what you've come up with scenarios for our role playing.
Okay, sorry if I'm a little goofy here, but there are several, and we're going to talk about displacement, projection, sublimation, denial, rationalization. And even though people use these coping mechanisms, they're not always really healthy mentally. But okay, so Johnny's going to guess which one I'm referring to, these defense mechanisms that Freud talked about. Okay, so my boss just chewed me out, but I can't talk back to him, so I'm going to go home and I'm going to really yell at my kids because they're not going to talk back. What's that?
I got that one. You can't say anything to the boss, so you go home and kick the dog or the child. Displacement?
Correct, displacement. And guys, no kicking dogs, no kicking children, okay? All right, the next one is, my friends are always so angry. All they do is they just complain. They're just angry. They don't know what they're doing. I'm just beside myself. They're just always angry at me. What is wrong with them? Do you know what that one is?
I definitely think I know this one. It's like that person sounds a little angry, but they are projecting it on the
Yes.
other person. All right.
And I'm
Oh,
sure, guys, when you write back to us, and please write to mommas, MOMMAS podcast@gmail.com, we would love to hear your experiences with either yourself, if you're that honest, or people you know. When I taught this in psychology, my students had the funniest reactions and responses, and a few of them talked about their grandmothers who were very angry and always complained that everybody else was angry. Okay, this one is a little bit not as sexy, should I say, but okay, so it's not cool to suck my thumb in public because Johnny was just talking about the different stages of development and people may frown on me sucking my thumb. So I'm going to get one of those lollipops that you put on your finger and you suck on, or I'm going to actually start smoking a cigarette because it's not cool for me to suck my thumb. What's that?
now that is giving me a little trouble.
Starts with an S.
Is that sublimation?
It is. Yay. Ding, 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 ding. Johnny, you're just going to get 100% on this psychology exam. Okay. The next one is, honey, I'm just going to go out and have a couple of beers with my friends. You know, it's important to do that because it's important to have a social relationship. And the wife sees him coming home completely drunk, falling all over himself. And what is he really doing? Is he being honest with himself, or he's in
Denial.
denial?
All right.
Denial.
I think big time.
Yep. And so many of us, don't want to face certain realities, and we live in the world of denial, which is, of course, the joke is it's not the longest river in the world, the Nile. Anyway, sorry for that silly joke.
That's
Okay,
funny.
one more to go. I didn't get that job, but I didn't want that job anyway. Who wanted that job? It would have been a problem. I had to travel. I had to do all this stuff. Nah, I'm so happy I didn't get that job, and he chose somebody else. What's that?
I know. That's my go-to. Rationalization.
Rationalization. And we all go to that as well, right? It's just a way that we defend our ego and really protect ourselves. But these are all things, even though it's a little bit humorous, it's all defense mechanisms that we use. And again, we would love to hear from you. The last one actually is not so much of a role play here, but it's Schadenfreude, and I'm sure I'm really messing up that pronunciation. I think it's more Schadenfreude, but not sure. But it's making yourself feel good while other people are suffering. So you almost enjoy seeing other people's suffering because then you think your life is really not that bad after all. So we all do this to an extent, but some people take it to the nth degree. So anyway, that's pretty much what we were going to do for this one. And now back to Johnny, who's going to talk about Maslow's theory of hierarchy. Sorry, this is a little academic this time, but we thought it would be fun to talk about.
Thank you, Elena. And again, you always bring up something that goes into something else. What you mentioned about the last one, and I won't even attempt to pronounce that word. That's a new word. I'll have to check it out. But it sounds like we have experienced or are experiencing a lot of that these days. Masochistic, and that's
Yes.
how I pronounce it.
Sure.
Where you inflict pain on other people
Oh,
and
sadistic.
get pleasure. And then sadist is, okay, one is you inflict it on other people and the other you inflict it on yourself.
Got it. Yeah, sadistic is on others and masochistic is
It's on
oneself.
yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are other things that Freud emphasizes. All right, well, now we're going to go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is his theory or belief in what motivates human behavior. He believes that we all start at a certain level and we go up a pyramid and it's called his called name for it is hierarchy of needs. And the first one is the physiological needs that we all have a desire for life, for food, clothes, shelter, place to stay. And then as you satisfy that level, then you move up to safety and security. So at that point, now you're looking at your government, your police system. Are the schools reliable, responsible? They giving you what you need for your life? And so as you satisfy that, then a person progresses to the love and belonging stage.
Yes.
And that is where people are looking for love, finding love, or maybe not. And a lot of people, I would think, how do you feel about this, Elena? Get stuck at that level or at any one of these levels. For example, a homeless person might be stuck at physiological needs.
Absolutely, yeah. And as Johnny finishes these hierarchy of needs, that the goal is for everybody to reach the highest level, but it's not realistic, of course, because people are suffering all over the world, all over our country, in our family. There's tremendous amount of suffering, and some people can't even think beyond having a meal because it's just the food is not available. And that's something that we really need to change in this society, in this world, so we can respect the dignity of all life. Every human being deserves to be respected, deserves to have a meaningful life. So you want to just
Yes.
continue?
So we left the physiological needs, moving up, safety and security, and then loving, belonging. And then, if you are fortunate enough and understand that you are entitled to it or you deserve it, that you are enough and you should have it, it's self esteem, where you care enough about yourself, you can be confident, you like you. And a lot of people, again, because they're bitter about not getting those other needs fulfilled, may have a hard time cherishing themselves. And so,
I think that's probably one of the most difficult for people to really have a sense of self-esteem and not to compare themselves to others, even though that's very, very, very hard to do. We live in a society filled with comparisons, but to really appreciate who you are, where you are. And I'm just going to bring in Navalny, those people who are familiar with that name. He was a Russian dissident and fought against Putin and gave his life and ended up dying in the most horrific prison imaginable. And he said he's among the 1% of the happiest people in the world. And he was living in absolute horrible situation. You couldn't get worse. He was in a prison in the Arctic Circle where he had neither clothes nor enough food, and he would get beatings. But yet he felt like he was accomplishing his mission, his desire for the people, the happiness of the people. For him to state that really made me self-reflect. What do we really need to be happy? Yes, we need all of these things, but ultimately a sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and to have a sense of mission, a goal, what we really want to accomplish. And his was fierce. Nelson Mandela, the same way, amazing. And the founder of Nichiren Buddhism, Nichiren Daishonin, who declared on Sado Island, where they threw all the bones of the dead people, and he didn't have a house, and it was freezing cold and barely any food, and he declared, I'm the happiest man in all Japan, because he realized that life itself was a treasure.
yes,
So
this,
back to you.
thank you. And the last one, if we take in what Elena just shared about everybody has that right. We have a right when we are born for all of these. And if they're not taking place, it's still up to the individual. Your situation, it's what's inside.
Right.
And so the last stage of this pyramid is self actualization, where you reach a point that you are then satisfied, you have great self esteem, and you are ready to grow as a person. And it is called, of course, self actualization. And that's it.
And in Buddhism, we have a concept of enlightenment, but enlightenment is not, as Johnny and I were sharing when we planned for this episode, it's not like a final stage. You're enlightened and you sit on top of a mountain and you just glow away. It's just the realization about the meaning of life and the treasure of life. So our takeaway is just asking all of you, our amazing, beautiful, gorgeous listeners, to write down 5 things that you're grateful for. And it could be the smallest thing. Let's really appreciate and celebrate small victories. And they could be just walking outside and seeing a flower that you hadn't seen before, or whatever it is. Take notice of your life, take notice of your environment. Please write to us, and we would love to hear from you. And next time, we're going to be talking about the self-reflecting mirror. Do you blame the mirror, or do you blame yourself?
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really enjoyed this session, Elena. Would like to leave you with these encouraging words. You are to be commended for your seeking spirit to want to learn more about mental health for yourself, your family, and the youth in your care and our world. You are strong, resilient, and worthy of happiness. You are more than enough. Stay kind to yourself and keep moving forward. Together, we are going to heal, grow, and thrive. Until the next time.
Once again, our motto is, you are the protagonist, not the victim of your destiny. Just Google us at Don't Mess with the Mommas. Mommas is spelled Mommas podcast. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube. And once again, don't forget to email us at mommas, mommas.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much.